everyone. It's studio time with Maria Grace and friends. I am so excited because this is my first episode. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm your host, Maria Grace.
Do you know how they say teens have selective hearing?
In my household, it takes a solid 3 minutes for my teenagers to actually listen to me, especially when it's regarding their chores. But what if it's not selective hearing? Today, we're tuning into a deeper frequency, one that hits very close to home for my guest. So stick around. This episode has the kind of info you'll want to hear loud and clear.
Well, hello, welcome back. I am here. I'm joined with my friend, Marion, also known in our Mary Kay unit as MCR. So tell us about that story.
Well, interestingly enough, I made it, pretty much half of a century before I ever ran into another Marion. Yes, I maybe like an older man or, occasionally, but never like on a day-to-day basis or in school or anything. And then within our area, there is another Marion. There's a director that's Marion. And so when our different units joined to have our meetings together, it became confusing. Because I know, Maureen, our senior director, she would say, okay, now Marion's going to da-da-da. And I would what? I'm not prepared. Oh my goodness. It would scare me. And then I'm like, oh wait, it's the other Marion. So then it became, she was OG, the original gangsta, because she was there first.
Right.
And then first I was Little M, which I actually didn't mind because no one had called me little anything. So I was like, hey, that's pretty cool. But then it eventually morphed into MCR. So that's the story of that. And
so we know her as MCR. Now, in our unit, what's funny is we have a lot of M's in our unit. Maureen, our director, Marion, Maria, we have a Mary. Well, we have several Marys. We have McIvy, who is Marianne Ivy.
Yes.
So there's a lot of M's, and so if your name starts with an M, you're sure to fit in very well to our team. Well, thank you for joining. So her grandson Caius has just recently suffered from sudden onset hearing loss. And I'll let you tell us a little bit more about what that is.
Sudden onset hearing loss is basically just what that is. Just your hearing is affected and it decreases. You just notice you're not hearing as well. And they're not really sure what causes it. It just happens. And you have very limited time to get treatment. And when we finally made it to the ENT, they said within 2 weeks, if you do not get treatment, it is permanent hearing loss. Now with ChatGPT, because I did a little bit of back research, to kind of get some things answered. And now that says 72 hours. So that was really something. And maybe that is for initial to make it to the emergency room. But of course, we had no idea. And that's why this is something that I'm very passionate about, because we didn't know what that meant and about this timeline. And my youngest child had 4 sets of ear tubes, 2 temporary, 2 permanent. So we were in ENT offices a lot. I mean, tonsils out, adenoids out twice because they regrew. And I had never heard about this.
I haven't heard about that either. And my son, who's 5 years old, has hearing tubes in his ears right now. I've not heard. I did look up some information, and it said it's very rare in kids and teenagers. It's most common in adults 40 to 60 years old.
Wow.
But it does happen. And I was looking at some Again, they said it is rare, and you really can't tell what is causing it, but it could be caused by several things. Maybe head trauma, an inner ear disorder, or it could be genetic. It could be genetic, or some kind of disease or illness, like you said before, a virus, autoimmune issue. Now, did Caius have anything that you can think of that might have occurred before this happened?
We could not think of a thing. And the timing of it, I mean, not that there would ever be a good time for that to happen, but the timing could not have been worse, because there were misunderstandings with how he presented it. Like, I didn't realize, and maybe I should back up a little bit with our timeline here. December of 23, my mother passed, and Caius had been living with her. She had custody. And so when she passed, he moved in with us, and then we had custody.
Right.
And the beginning she passed December 16th, so we had her celebration of life January 6th, so we waited till after the holidays. And so we kind of just stayed at her house, and then after the celebration, we moved. And then the third week of January, we have our leadership seminar. So I drove out to Fort Worth, and I guess during that time when I was gone, that's when it happened. But when I came back, he didn't say anything, and he also ended up with like a high ankle sprain or something to that effect. So he was being treated for that, and which they're unrelated. And so at some point, he just we were walking, and I was on his left side, and he's like, oh, he couldn't hear. He was like, oh, I can't hear well out of that ear. Switch sides. And that's kind of how it started. So he never said, I can't hear out of that ear, and it happened recently. Like, to the way I interpreted it was that it was something that had already been addressed health-wise. Like, my mom and he had already taken care of it, because it was stated matter of fact, not like, can we get in to see the doctor, or, something like when it was the ankle, hey, my ankle hurts, I need to get in,
Right. And him being a teenager, he probably didn't even think maybe he thought it was just a clogged ear, or his, from a cold or something, and didn't, think about the urgency of this matter.
Well, and that's a very good point, because Caius does also have issues with a lot of wax buildup, where he, like, I won't do it. Like, to me, digging for earwax, I mean, I don't want to risk damaging anything. Yeah. Now, I am a Q-tip fanatic. I hope the doctor isn't watching this. Oh, maybe they should. We want everybody to watch it. Come on now.
But like, shut that episode down. They're all wrong. They don't know the facts.
Nothing smaller than an elbow in your ear, I think, is the rule. But anyway, I won't, do the ear cleaning thing. But his mom or stepdad would do that. And if he was in a doctor's office, they would go in and clear that. And now we actually have visits set up every 2 months where he just goes in, and it's both ears, but that's unrelated. It has nothing to do with it. But that was probably what he was thinking, because that has been for years a consistent issue that he's had.
So at what point was it you or him realized that this could be more serious than what, is thought?
Well, it was after, finally, at some point, the mom and stepdad cleaned the ears out, and the problem was still there. And I think we noticed it more during spring break of that year. It was March of 24, and we had career conference that year in Charlotte, North Carolina. And it fell with school spring break. So we decided to stop in Asheville and go to the Biltmore. And so my husband, Stephen, Caius, and I, we went on a little road trip and stopped there. And Caius got really sick, like a virus, something or other. And like to the point he was sleeping a lot on the trip. And I considered finding an emergency room actually in Asheville, but the temperature went down and he was okay. But it was more noticeable in the car and like doing tours and stuff because we were walking next to each other more. And at some point during that trip, that's when it came out that, because it was like, you know, how long, you know, you just had your ears cleaned. How long has this been a problem? Like, that's when I started like, my gosh, dude, you really can't hear what I'm saying. Like, this is like an issue because it was constant, what? And at that point, that's when he said, well, it happened in January, like the same time my ankle. And I was like, what? This just happened? And that's when the light bulb went off.
Okay.
So when we got back from that trip, we got in to see the primary, and I actually jotted the dates down to kind of show just how skewed and just how off this was because we had no idea of the urgency. So we got into the primary. It was March 27th. So we tell the primary, and it was also a follow-up from that illness because he was still a little puny. And the primary's like, well, get in to get his hearing checked. So make an appointment for the audiologist. So I called that day. He didn't get in until May 22nd to the audiologist. At that point, they said, oh yeah, he's got 60% hearing loss in the left ear. And then 40%, which I didn't know this, there are two types of hearing. You have the volume part, and then there's also the part that helps you distinguish words or understand them. And he has a 40% loss with that. So, and that is the part that a hearing aid cannot help with. A hearing aid just helps with volume, but that 40% loss that he has cannot be recovered. So we found that out May 22nd. So they said, oh, you need to get into an ENT. So they refer us. That appointment, we didn't get into an ENT until July 29th.
Oh, wow.
And they do the test because they didn't know that it was sudden onset. And that's when we find out he had the same 60-40 hearing loss in that left ear. And that's when they said, it's permanent at this point. There's nothing that can be done. It could have been virus. If you would have been here in that first 2 weeks, we might have been able to do something.
Oh, no. So sudden onset hearing loss is a medical emergency where he should have gone straight to the emergency room.
Yes.
Instead of making an appointment.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they said that. And I asked them, I'm like, why doesn't anybody know about this? And they said it bothers them because they try to work with primary physicians. They try to get the word out because the same thing that happened to us happens, like, because primary physicians will refer to an audiologist. The audiologist didn't even tell them with their referral that it was an emergency and it was sudden onset. But I mean, even by then we were too far out. By the time we made it to the primary, we were out of the 2-week window. So we're not placing blame on anyone. You know, I guess I need to make that clear. It was nobody's fault. But that's why, you know, everyone needs to be aware.
Especially with teenagers, because when I talk to my kids, and I know I'm not the only one, they respond with, huh? What? Huh?
That selective listening. It actually, I don't know if this is.
So as a parent, I should respond with, can you hear me? Is your hearing okay? Because if not, we have to go to the emergency room.
Well,
Right.
well, that might actually get their attention a little more. Like, ooh, she might take me to the emergency room if I'm not listening. If I'm just tuning her out, it might get me a trip with an IV or something.
So how is Kaya's now? So her, with like my son, her son's a big gamer on the computer. So how is his hearing now, especially with hearing headphones or gaming, or how is he living with it?
Well, interestingly, he's also a band geek too. So he plays tenor sax and trumpet as well. And at the time, like that day when we found out, he actually was like, that's the best, like, bad news I've gotten. Like, he took it better than me. I felt horrible. I felt guilty because I hadn't gotten him in. I felt like it slipped through the cracks because of life, and I hadn't paid enough attention. I felt, bad that he was going to have to wear a hearing aid. And I worried about, a 16-year-old going to school with a hearing aid type, the social ramifications of it for him, potential bullying, that type of thing. Like all these things go through your head, and, but he really, for him, which is good and bad, he's just had so much loss in his life that for him, he was like, whatever, that's really not that bad. It's wearing a hearing aid. And I do have to say, once we went in to get the hearing aid, they're really high tech. Like, it's like Bluetooth linked to his phone. So he can have the music.
Oh, nice.
And interesting that you brought up about the selective listening, tuning out. One of the first things he asked them when the tech they were fitting for the hearing aid was, so if I don't want to hear grandma, can I just like turn the volume down on the hearing aid? And she was like, yes, you can.
So he basically can mute grandma.
Yes.
I'm not hearing you, grandma.
I'm not trying to hear that. Pretty much.
Don't all kids wish they had that?
Right? Yeah. So, I mean, he handles it. He does have noise canceling headphones for like sensory type stuff. And he did get special, which we had to order those separate to kind of help like with band to help prevent loss in the future, that were special like noise canceling ear, because he can't wear his headphones with the hearing aid. So that can be an issue, but he'll put the headphone back here when he's wearing the hearing aid, but when he's gaming. But he did switch to online school after this past spring break. And so about a year after, all of that happened. And he kind of stopped wearing the hearing aid because he was just at home and he would have the headphones on. And so it wasn't as much of an issue. However, this is an interesting tidbit too. We went into one of his appointments to get the ears cleaned, and I was kind of told on him, told the prime, like, this guy's not wearing his hearing aid, and he just doesn't wear them at all anymore.
Snitches get stitches.
Actually, that's exactly what he said. He gave me the stink eye and said that. But the provider then said, you have to wear it at least sometimes, because it's the same as with anything. If you don't use that part, that ear is going to get lazy and he's going to have more hearing loss.
Okay.
So it will just continue to get worse if he's not exercising it with the hearing aid. It's like, it's not forcing the ear to work and to try to understand words. It's just going to let it, bloop. It's just going to sit there. So he's back to putting it on. She said, at least at gatherings, when you go out, like if you're just at home, don't worry.
Marian, thank you so much for sharing your story. And thank you, audience, for tuning in for our first episode of Studio Time with Maria Grace and Friends. Today's story can remind us that life can shift in unexpected ways. But even in silence, there's strength, love, and resilience. So keep watching, keep tuning in. I was going to say, until next time, keep showing up, keep listening, and keep believing in the power of connection.
Bye. I was afraid to raise my hand that time. I was like, is that the way?
We don't talk anymore. We don't talk anymore. We don't talk anymore like we used to.